Good morning, everybody. It's your boy Dave P coming to you live from an undisclosed location in snowy Ohio, here with my main man, RJ Pepino. RJ, how's the vibe?
The vibe's alive.
And of course, it wouldn't be coffee with the cream and the brewer without Eric Brewer himself. Before we get going, today's going to be a different type of topic. We talk about everything here on our show, from life to real estate, money, family. Today, we're talking about how lockdowns are affecting children. And when Eric texted this over this morning, I said, this is going to be a good topic. I had a pretty in-depth conversation with somebody very close to this. And I'm interested to hear what Eric has to say. But if you don't know Eric Brewer, I just wanted to give a little context because I know this is on my Facebook and a lot of people know myself and RJ. But Eric Brewer is out of the central Pennsylvania market. His real estate business does upwards of 350 to 400 plus real estate transactions every single year. Been doing real estate for quite a long time. And he is the founder of the Brewer Method. And a lot of people had no idea what the type of real estate transaction novation was until Eric Brewer brought it to the collective genius. And he's doing a ton of those. We're going to go in depth on this stuff on future episodes. But make sure you follow Eric Brewer. We started this show because he got put into Facebook jail, if you will. And we are doing everything we possibly can to keep this man online because he's got a lot of value to share. Eric, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm good. We got 7 inches of snow here last night, but it was perfect. It all happened like mid-afternoon to late night. So the roads are clear. I'm on my way to the office and we're back to business as usual.
Well, we are coming on. Normally it's 8:10, a little bit behind today, and I will take responsibility for that one. We have a wild dog on our hands, and he tends to keep me up pretty late, but we are here. And the topic today is how lockdowns are affecting kids. Brewer, take it away.
Yeah, so let me just start by saying I'm certainly not a psychiatrist or psychologist that would understand how these things, would technically impact children. I saw a very shocking similarity in the behavior of my son and his friends. And it resonated with me because between my sophomore and junior year, something in my family changed. My parents got separated. And for almost a full year, my parents couldn't decide on who was going to keep the house that we lived in. So they were both bullheaded. They both moved out, and I wanted to stay in the school that I was in. So I technically was living by myself. And if you can imagine, I was a relatively popular 16-year-old. I didn't get into good stuff. I started, hanging out with a couple dudes that were maybe not as focused as they should be, and had access to booze and some drugs and stuff. And next thing I know, I missed 64 days of school my junior year. And that was important because I got kicked off the basketball team. I got suspended that year, and they had a no tolerance rule that if you got suspended, you were off the team. And then I wasn't eligible to play baseball in the spring because at that point I was basically, a failing student. And I just recall that at the time, to me, that was almost cool, right? I was the bad kid that didn't go to school, that could have people over at his house. And, if anything, I became more popular, right? More popular amongst a different group of people instead of running around with basketball players that, worked out every day, and baseball players that, were trying to get better in the off season. I was now running around with kids that thought that missing 60 days of school and failing English and science in 11th grade was cool. So the short version of that is I barely graduated high school. I had to go to summer school. I started my senior year in an 11th grade homeroom, which wasn't all that bad in the beginning because like the hottest girl in the school sat behind me. but other than that, like I couldn't go to lunch with my bros, right? Like at senior, when I was in high school, one of the coolest things was you got to go to lunch. So you could, if someone had a car, you guys could go to like McDonald's or Wendy's or someone's house that lived close by and go to lunch, and it was kind of cool, right? And I didn't have that privilege the beginning of my senior year. So flash forward to graduation, I barely graduate. I've completely depleted any chance that I had of going to college. I actually remember myself, I was talking about this with someone yesterday, when people would ask me about college, because I was a good enough student. I was smart enough and I was good enough at baseball that I was a scholarship caliber baseball player, but I just had no interest. And I remember people asking me and they would say, you're not going to go to college? What are you going to do? I mean, well, you're not going to college. They got to remember back 25 years ago, I mean, like nobody came out of school and started a business. Nobody came out of school and like, got a job. It was like, it was expected that you went to college. And I would actually say, and I must cringe when I hear myself saying it, I would say, I just went to school for 12 years. I'm not going back to school for another 4. What am I, an idiot? And, I guess things worked out, right? Thank God that, I ended up where I am today, and I'm extremely blessed. But the lesson in this is when sports went away, when interaction with girls, let's just put it frankly, like when I wasn't going to school, I wasn't interacting with girls, wasn't interacting with my peers. I wasn't able to have the experiences that most kids have, when you're junior and senior year. For most of us, a lot of times that's the fondest memories we have of our childhood, right? Because we could actually go and do things, and we had our own group of friends, and we had some freedom, and but yet we still had a nice warm place to stay, and our parents always made sure that we were fed and had clothes on our back, so we didn't have the pressure of being an adult. And I wasn't recovered, I would say, from that until I was 30 years old. Like I didn't learn the lessons I should have learned. I wasn't as disciplined that I shouldn't have been. It took me a while. I ended up going into the Army, and I was in the Army. I went to boot camp, made it through boot camp, AIT, and served in the military. And that was actually where, I snapped back into place. But the reality is there was about a 3 to 5 year window where I battled depression. And I ended up becoming I wouldn't say an alcoholic, but the way that I would deal with depression is I would go out and party. I wanted to be around people. I wanted attention. And as I look back on it, I think I was trying to fill that void that was left by me basically missing those productive 2 years of my scholastic career, right? All of those things that I missed out on. Now, when I'm 21 years old, I'm going out and I'm trying to force feed it. And I'm doing it. I have a bit of as a lot of entrepreneurs do, I have an addictive personality, right? Like if I do something, I'm either all in or I'm all out. So I went all in on trying to relive basically my junior and senior year between the age of 21 and 29 years old. And now I actually had money, so I'm even more dangerous than I was when I was 16 years old, right? I could buy all these nice cars. I could, go to wherever I wanted to go. I could, blow money on $200 bar tabs. And so when I think back about that patch in my life, and now I look at my son, right? So he was 16. He just turned 17. He was kicked out of school, not because of his behavior, but because of, this coronavirus, March of last year. So you got March, April, May, June. I mean, he lost 1/3 of an entire school year. For him was a sophomore. He lost his entire summer AAU basketball season, which for basketball players, that's where you get recruited. That's it. That's you practice all year to play that summer AAU circuit. He started football late. I mean, the football season was shit. They played 6 games instead of 12. And then just to put that into perspective, like my son he went to the gym or worked out 4 times a day, every single day between March and August. So when this football season came around, like, he was in the best shape of his life. He was poised to lead his team. And he played 6 games and threw for 1,500 yards. If they play a normal 10-game season, he breaks the county passing record. He shatters the school passing record. And I mean, okay, it is what it is, right? It's like high school football. He's not going to be Al Bundy, I hope, talking about his football memories, right?
Polk High, right?
With his hand down his pants, right? But like, the end of the day is he wasn't able to reap the benefits of the work that he put in. Right? Like, he did work for those 4 months when other kids were playing video games, screwing off, sleeping until noon. And then he wasn't given the opportunity to capitalize on that work, right? He should have got his name in the record books. He should have had an opportunity to play for a county championship. He should have had an opportunity to play an undefeated season, and all of that was taken from him. And I say taken from him because this isn't, the virus happened to us, but these lockdowns are not happening to us. These are decisions that are made by adults that impact everybody. And I mean, I don't want to get too off on the political side of it, but at the end of the day, what I see is that now all of these kids, not because they're going through what I went through with a family dynamic, but all of that stuff's being taken away from them. I mean, I think I was a pretty ordinary 16-year-old kid when that started. It was the circumstances that led me down a dangerous path. And I think these lockdowns run the risk of doing the exact same thing to these impressionable kids. I mean, really anybody between the age of like 7 years old to 17 years old. It scares the living shit out of me, man.
And if you're just tuning in, Eric just shared, thank you for the vulnerability and for the transparency and being authentic and kind of sharing your story as a 16-year-old and going through what you went through. And I think a lot of people could relate to that. And, it does build character, and there's so much in your story that I personally could relate to on a lot of levels. But if you're just tuning in, I see people coming on. I did have the privacy settings set only to where it was locked out, but I changed the settings so it's open to the public now. But you're going to want to rewind that or just see the first 4 minutes of the video where Eric shares his experience as a 16-year-old. And we're talking today about how lockdowns are affecting kids. And I'll share this, Eric. I moved in with my girlfriend probably, 8 months before all of the COVID stuff started to peek its ugly head. And, we have here a 6-year-old who it's his first year of kindergarten. So we never got to experience the whole, walk the kid to school and whatnot. But I see it weighing on him, a 6-year-old. He just wants to be social. He's cooped up in a little toy room. And that's it. It's really, I do think there's going to be lasting effects on every age group. So I'm talking about a 6-year-old. Your son, you just mentioned, is 17. What is he, a junior in high school or senior?
Yeah. Yeah. So he's a junior.
So these are extremely formidable years, whether it be, the 6-year-old, all of it, from K through 12, these are extremely formidable years that anyone could relate to. These really do shape us, the relationships, like Eric just shared, when he was 16, just like every one of us, we were chasing girls and stuff like that. To take that away from a 16-year-old, I think the social impacts of this are going to be very much lasting, and it's not in a positive way. RJ, what feedback do you have about kind of how lockdowns are affecting kids right now, and maybe anything you could relate to from what Eric shared?
I was the same way, Eric. I didn't break out of my shell until later in life. I was very, very shy, and I had to work on myself. So I can relate to your story very much. And, one of the things we were just talking about this, like we have a newborn, my daughter is a couple months old, and she sees, every family member like this. This is what she sees, She sees this and she thinks that grandma looks like this and Lola looks like this. So it's weird because they need to have the interaction that she sees her mom and dad, and her uncles and aunts and nephews and stuff like that. So it's such a weird time right now with what's going on with this lockdown. I feel like, I just feel like it's so ridiculous. So I'm not even gonna go down that route either. But I think it's so important right now to find a way to bring that social aspect back to these kids somehow, because they're going to need it. Otherwise they're going to have situations where they're going to have the possibility of later on in their lives, in their 20s, of wanting to break out of their shell, like myself, and I don't know the answer. I mean, there's only so much you can do on Zoom, hanging out with your friends on Zoom. You need that energy and feeling and interaction.
So, yeah, dude, you couldn't, like, I'll give you an example. Dave, we've been on Zoom 4 days in a row, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's it like when me and you see each other?
It's a lot better, man.
Yeah, I mean, 15-minute, thank you. 15-minute interaction in person, right? Dave, what's up, bro? Like, what's going on? We're high-fiving.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, it's just different. Like, you can't, like, and then the more you know, so I spent a lot of time in predictive index, hiring people, understanding people's different behavioral traits. So it's not just exclusive to kids, right? To me, it's so important because, I mean, let's face it, like when you get off to a bad start, it's difficult to get back on track, right? So we talk about the formidable years of kids, whether you're 7 years old or 17, if they get started down a path, there's the age-old saying of bad habits are hard to break and good habits are 10 times harder to start. My point would be is that, like, when we went on like lockdown, the first round, right? So Pennsylvania, we're on like lockdown part no, right? Where it's like the second hardest lockdown that we've dealt with. We pulled predictive index profiles on all of our acquisitions agents during lockdown, and their behavior was dangerously being modified. And if you know a little bit of something about salespeople and the way we hire acquisitions agents is on the predictive index profiles, they have a high B. They're very sociable, right? They feed off the energy of people. And in the absence of that, when they were on lockdown, they were pushing up their A. They were becoming more controlling. They were becoming more demanding. They basically were becoming pushy salespeople, which is the polar opposite of what we hire. It does not fit well with our culture. And quite frankly, it's no fun to be around those people. And, those are 30, 40-year-old professional adults that 30 days into a lockdown, we're transforming, frankly, into assholes, right? So, and we're less vulnerable, we're less impressionable when we're 30, 40 years old. So imagine what's going through a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 16-year-old kid's mind when all of those opportunities are taken away from them. So my concern really is that, what RJ said, without that interaction, with this shocking, like I could almost deal with the masks if we were back to normal, right? Like if that was the mechanism that put people at ease and allowed us to go back to basketball, baseball, for my son specifically, I worry about him because the incentive for him to get good grades. I mean, it's tough now. Like, how long can you continue to go to the gym? The reason he went to the gym was to compete. So the ability to compete is taken away from him. So now I've seen him going literally he was in the gym 3 and 4 times a day. Now, if he goes 3 or 4 times a week, it's a lot. And it's like a struggle to get him to go there because it's hard for him to see what he's working towards. Because at this point there is no basketball season. They've for the time in Pennsylvania, it's been canceled.
And I do want to bring it back to your son being 17 and kind of get the word on the street. But first, some fun statistics. Not so fun statistics, I should say. So on the California, every state's a little bit different. So the state mandates are different in every state. Some states worse or looser or tighter than others. It's not better or worse. It is what it is and how you interpret it. But in the state of California, arguably the tightest of the states where the lockdown is the tightest. On the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control website, RJ, how many children under the age of 18 do you think are listed that have died of COVID-19?
Less than 1,000.
Well, zero is the right answer. Zero. It's the truth. Zero
So
children.
he was right.
Yeah, less than 1,000, way less than 1,000. And we laugh, but it's actually pretty pathetic when you think about it. So zero children under the age of 18 have died of COVID-19, yet we're locking down the schools and we're talking about the effects of lockdowns for really all ages. And very recently, without sharing too much personal information about this individual, because it was a private conversation, but I spoke with somebody who is very, very well connected with the state of California behavioral science, department, if you will, and they see it every single day with child abuse. And this individual was sharing with me the statistics have absolutely skyrocketed as far as the level of abuse, alcoholism, drug use from adults, and that trickles down to the children. Because if somebody's an abuser and they're not on lockdown, just think of the children, unfortunately, who are stuck with these monsters and now they have nowhere to go. A lot of children use school for a good square meal and for a getaway and for the level of stress. And they study these children's brains, and you can see the amount of stress that children are under. The stress level has increased dramatically. The level of abuse is up through the roof. And again, this isn't statistically anything that actually needs to happen. There are zero deaths of children under the age of 18. I want to bring it back to you, and we'll bring it home, Eric. So your son is 17 in high school. What is the consensus of children that age as far as the sentiment towards COVID-19? Is this something that and you can be frank, I mean, are they taking it seriously or do they completely think it's all bullshit?
Well, so my son is my son, right? So I think he gets a fair amount of his opinions or beliefs from me. Sorry, I'm walking my office.
You're fine.
He thinks it's bullshit.
Leave it in the comments below, and let us know in your household, if you have a child who is on lockdown, how children are being affected. We're getting to the bottom of this thing today. We're here. It's myself and RJ. We are the Cream, Cash Flow, Real Estate, and Money. And of course, it wouldn't be Coffee with the Cream and the Brewer without founder of the Brewer Method, Eric Brewer himself. And check out the beginning of the video. Eric shares a lot about his journey growing up during these ages. And then he raises a 17-year-old son. Leave it in the comments below on how your child is responding to the lockdown. So Eric, as far as your son, to bring it on home, what have you been sharing with him to help him kind of get through this? Because you already said the motivation level goes down. What motivation do they have to work out when their athletics have been taken away from them and whatnot? I mean, what can you share on kind of what you've been doing to keep this kid going?
Man, it's really been tough. I mean, the one thing that we've decided that, I'm fortunate enough to have as an option is we're actively looking at private schools for him for next year, whether he may or may not stay inside of the state, but they have the ability to operate essentially with their own set of rules. And more than likely, he's going to end up reclassifying. He'll repeat 11th grade, and he's going to transfer to a preparatory school. Um, I mean, so I mean, he's fortunate enough that he can reclass, and that we have the ability to financially support him going to a prep school, and that he's talented enough that those schools have interest in him going there to play sports. So he's into it. I mean, otherwise, I think if I said, "Hey, dude, I think you should repeat 11th grade," I might not get as much buy-in, right, as I would if it was like, "Hey, you get to play football and basketball at a high level for 2 more years instead of just one." But his goal has always been to earn a scholarship, not to go to college, not to play at the next level. It has been to earn an athletic scholarship. That's his
awesome.
short-term goal. So for him, he's going to have to repeat 11th grade. I mean, it's almost like we got to hit the redo button. I don't want this to be his next to last year in high school, right? Because next thing you know, you snap your fingers, your senior year comes, and it's between just being a senior and then preparing to graduate. That senior year of my of school for me was the quickest year in the history of my 45 years of life. And at the end of the day, like it's made so many changes, right? Like, so in the recruiting process, there's a lot of friends that he plays sports with that are graduating this year that aren't getting scholarships because kids in college are reclassing. The NCAA has extended every kid in college an additional year of eligibility. So all of those kids that were going to graduate and move on from college to open up these new opportunities for the class of 2021, those seats are still filled now. Those kids are staying in school in college another year. So think about how many scholarships are no longer available. I shared it on my page the other day from a college coach that I'm friends with, and he basically just spelled it out. He's like, "Look, dude, if I have a choice between bringing in a freshman without experience or giving that scholarship to a 3-year returning starter or a 4-year, 5th year at this point returning starter that we're already familiar with, that's already part of the program and is looking to finish out their collegiate career, it's a tough decision, but we're going to stick with the senior." So all of those scholarships, I mean, dude, there's like 6, 7, 8, 10 layers of this shit, right? It's not like, "Hey, I didn't get to go to school," or I left this morning and I went in to say goodbye to my son, and he's like laying in bed, covers pulled up just so his head's sticking out, and he's got his laptop sitting here, and like, "Hey, see, buddy, I'm leaving for the day. What you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in class." Like, I mean, if I didn't sit at the front of the class and get smacked on the neck with a ruler like every 20 minutes, I was falling asleep, or my ADHD was kicking in, and I was staring out the window watching butterflies fight. Like, imagine trying to be guys like us, assuming you're a little bit like me, right? I found that like most of us entrepreneurs are a little bit the same way. It's tough to capture our attention for an extended period of time. We like to constantly be stimulated, right? So imagine if you had to go through, like, dude, he's trying to learn physics on Zoom, right? Like, imagine learning physics on Zoom. It's this, just punch me in the face and set me on fire. It's just, I'd rather not. It's just bad, dude. It's bad, and it's a shame. I look at all these, Facebook's a crazy place, and there's a place out your way. So like, Western Pennsylvania has sort of been like the trailblazer for challenging these lockdowns, right?
Nice.
So Allegheny County just filed a lawsuit against the governor saying that he overstepped his powers by telling schools that they can't have sports. It's not, they're saying it's not his authority. It's unconstitutional. There's nowhere in the provisions he has no say as to how public schools are run. They filed a massive lawsuit against him. They were one of the first places that challenged like his lockdowns when in regards to restaurants, and back in football season, like football in Ohio and Western Pennsylvania is like, I mean, that's it, right? That's like, it's like, what's the movie? Remember that, what was Maryland? It's like crab cakes and football, baby. That's what we do. We don't do crab cakes in Pennsylvania, right? But football is a big part of everybody's life, whether it's playing it or watching it or just being a fan. So it's just scary for me, man. Like, and to answer that question, I don't know. What do you do? It's not part of the normal parenting protocol. At least not, from my experience. I was used to supporting him and, helping them deal with challenges at school. And I can relate because I went through most of that myself. This is uncharted territory for me. I don't know how to support them. I check in on them 25 times a day. I don't know, dude. It gets me fucking worked up, actually.
Well, I know one thing for sure, and I can truly vouch for this because I got to spend some time with you, Eric, in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. And it's really funny. I have a memory of Eric where his son had a basketball game. We are in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. I don't know what this guy did. He's like MacGyver. He's got a sheet of tinfoil and he found some antenna in a back alley, but he literally found a way to cross some wires and stream his son's, small town compared to
Pennsylvania,
relatively speaking. Yeah. Pennsylvania high school basketball game. And we watched it on the big screen from Zihuatanejo, Mexico. The guy would not stop doing anything he possibly could. And you did it. I didn't think there was a chance in hell you were going to figure that out.
For those of you that don't know where Zihuatanejo, Mexico is, it is like just above Guatemala.
I'm not kidding.
It's out there, right? It's a pretty remote location. But no, I have a buddy that has a production company. I sponsored the game. They televised it and streamed it through YouTube. We picked up a little Wi-Fi signal there. Dude, one of the coolest pictures I have is like I was standing behind because I went to get like some chips and salsa, right? And like the 25 people that we were with, it's just a group of people, right? We're all standing in this like half circle watching the game. And as I looked back to check on the score and what was going on, I snapped a picture. I'll have to send it to you. It's one of the coolest pictures ever because it's, like 15 of our CG buddies all, circled around supporting my son watching that game. That was a state playoff game.
That's huge. Yeah, I'd be watching it too, man.
Dude, I was so stressed that I couldn't be because they weren't supposed to make that game. They were a 9 seed, which is the bottom seed, and they played the 1 seed and upset them. It was like, like March Madness. It was crazy that they upset the number 1 seed as a 9 seed. And I just wasn't going to miss it. If I couldn't be there, I was going to watch it. And it was pretty cool. We lost signal a couple times. It was lagging. But when you're in Zihuatanejo, Mexico in flip-flops and board shorts, it was a small price to pay to watch it. And
it was
they won.
Truly impressive. But, I think the consensus is, coming out of this COVID experience, there's going to be a long-term uncertainty. There's a ton of uncertainty, but one thing that we do know for certain is we got a lot of proud parents, Eric and RJ being 2 of them, and all of our viewers as well. Leave it in the comments below on how you feel the lockdowns will be affecting our children in the short term and the long term. This is another episode of Coffee with the Cream and the Brewer. The Cream is cash flow, real estate, and money with your boy Dave P and RJ. And check out more of Eric Brewer at thebrewermethod.com. This is our morning show. We will see you on the next video.
Sure, guys. Have a good day.
Have a good day.